Good evening, everyone. I am Jill T. from the University of Washington's Northwest Center for Occupational Health and Safety. Thank you for joining us. We're in Seattle, Washington right now, and you are logged into the informational live webinar session for the Green Chemistry and Chemical Stewardship online certificate program. I'm your host this evening, along with one of our very special instructors and friends, Dr. Grace Lasker, joining us, Director of Health Studies at the University of Washington, Bothell. Thank you for joining us, Grace.
Absolutely, every time. I love the invitation, so keep making it, please.
Fantastic. Before we begin today's session, I want to let you know that you are currently in listening mode. So if you have a question for myself or for Grace at any time, go ahead and use that chat box. We really want this to be conversational and informal, so go ahead and post any of those questions you're thinking about at any point during that chat. And at the end of this, we'll also have contact information for follow-up questions if you have any. We're also recording today's session, so a link will be sent out to you about tomorrow sometime, I believe. And you can take a look at that at any time and share as you'd like. And with that, we're going to go ahead and introduce the program, and then we're going to get a little bit into the nuts and bolts of what's included in the program, and then we'll get a chance to talk to Grace about her experience as an instructor and what she'll be talking about during her course, and then we'll close up with some of the nuts and bolts about how to consider joining the program and some of the next steps to take. So with that, we're going to go ahead and get started. The Green Chemistry and Chemical Stewardship online certificate program has a new endorsement, which we're super excited about. We're newly endorsed by the Association for the Advancement of Alternative Assessments, A4, so that's a great new thing. So we're really happy about that as well. They've been highlighted by the ACS recently, which is pretty exciting as well. So my name is Jill. I'm from the University of Washington, and I help administer programs, and I'm a course administrator for this program as well. And I help build health and safety programs throughout Region 10, throughout the Pacific Northwest. And then Grace Lasker, who mentioned, she's going to be introducing herself in a moment. Grace, do you want to just take a second and tell folks where you're from and a little bit about your background?
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll talk about really exciting, fun things yet to come. But in a nutshell, I'm the director of the Health Studies program, which is a social justice and community engaged version of public health at the University of Washington, Bothell. And I'm an adjunct senior lecturer for the Department of Environmental and Occupational Health Sciences as well. So a lot of collaborative work between the two university campuses.
Absolutely. So what is a certificate program? It's a focused continuing education in a particular field. It links together a series of courses that constitutes a coherent body of knowledge in a discipline. And it's primarily designed for post-baccalaureate participants. Every once in a while we have had an undergraduate or student that have participated, but they've been someone who's really been ambitious in this field. It was developed initially by UW Professional Continuing Education and an advisory board of a pretty impressive body of committee members from industry, from government, and non-governmental groups as well. The courses and instructors are approved by the university. So why earn a certificate? Courses contain practical information relevant to professional working in a specialized field. Part of what is going to happen in these courses is that there is lots of background information as well as really practical information you can take home. So you really get a little bit of both going into it, but the driver of professional education is that we need something we can use right now in our job. So that's definitely where our focus lies. The instructors are recognized authorities in the professional community. And it's an opportunity to update skills and knowledge and to learn from other professionals. We'll talk about this a little bit more around this kind of peer-to-peer learning that happens in this environment that's really, really amazing. A certificate credential can really facilitate career advancement. This is a really great piece to kind of open up the field for you. So other benefits, I kind of hinted at this before, it's cohort-based. So everything is online, but you will enter in with a group of folks through these courses that you'll get to know and get to know some of their work. A lot of folks that come to these courses have some experience in the field and can talk about things they've worked on or things they're interested in, and you'll get a chance to comment on their work and they'll comment on your work, and next thing you know, you've really created some amazing networking within this course. So that part is really invaluable. The nice part about this online delivery is that the course schedule and flexible there's a real flexible delivery to it. So the way this is set up with everything being online, you can pop in and pop out within within these modules that we'll talk about a little bit later. But it gives you a choice of what time of day you can get to the work as well. The nice thing about a certificate is it's less time and less financial commitment than a degree program. And a certificate is an academic credential endorsed by UW. So what will you learn out of this particular certificate program? You'll learn about reducing harmful substances through material decision-making and chemical design. Learn to overcome common disconnect between chemical properties, toxicity, and human health. We'll consider how these factors influence material selection with consideration paid to viable business decisions. That's so key. We can spend a lot of time talking about new chemistry, and where toxicology impacts those choices, but if it isn't a viable business decision, it's not going to go anywhere. So that's all part of this program as well. And then we'll learn how to identify sustainability issues related to green chemistry practices and how to apply your newly acquired knowledge and skills to promote chemical stewardship. So it's really that intersection of green chemistry, toxicology, and business. The certificate program is broken up into 3 different courses. For fall, it's sustainability, toxicity, and human health. It launches on September 23rd and we end December 6th. Principles of Green Chemistry, that's September 6th through March 13th, 2020. And then we finish with Assessment Tools for Safer Chemical Decisions, March 30th to June 5th, 2020. As I mentioned, everything is in an online format. So with this, I'm going to have Grace walk us through the 3 courses that make up this certificate program, and to talk a little bit about who the instructors are and what elements you can expect to see in each course. All right, Grace.
Yeah. So this is the exciting part of life, where you are coming to a thought around continued education. You know, like there's so much that you can learn. There's so many pieces that you can pick up. Why should this be the one that you're going to put your effort to? Because I get it. Working and then going to school is probably some of the hardest things you could put together. Most of us have families or people we're taking care of, or little furries that we're taking care of. And to contemplate the addition of this certificate program into your life now is probably overwhelming. So we know that. And the way that this certificate was developed was with that in mind. Not only the significant amount of effort that you're going to put into your continuing education, but also then what that's going to mean to you, to our communities, and to a global impact when this is done. Because these 3 classes together not only situate you in maybe a new place or a deeper place in toxicology or green chemistry or chemical assessment, but it also gives you the tools that you're going to need to think about the global issues that are significant right now, climate change being one of them that I can think of. Chemical and health issues around regrettable substitutions or products that we've been using for decades that we're suddenly now being told, okay, don't use those because there's a lot of issues around it. So your impact globally is a part of this work that you can do in the certificate program. It's also, like Jill said, very important that we situated this in industry and situated it such that you're getting the actual tools that you are going to need to go and do something. So that word "do" is really important. This is not like the bachelor's degree or academic certificates that you have taken before. Those are very theoretical, and you get these big, thick books and you read it and you memorize all this stuff. And then when the class is over, you kind of throw it aside and you go on to the next one, right? And your brain hurts at the end and you're like, you know, what was it all for? This is not that. This is continuing education with an industry focus on the content, and the deliverable being that you can do with this. So it's a very action-oriented sort of of learning. The bi-weekly modules that you'll be involved in challenge you for real world, current event, very poignant sort of ways to integrate what you're learning into your day-to-day, either in your workplace, in your home, or like I said, I'm a very big systems thinker. So, global impact. We have really made sure to do that. And the way that we can do that is with the faculty that we have teaching this certificate program. They come from industry, they come from academia, they come from lots of different types of programs. So that interdisciplinarity, it gives this program that extra value. And so we feel very obligated to make sure that this is worth your time, that we know that you're putting into this, that we know that you are struggling to find that time to do. So we had years of consultation with our stakeholders and our advisory board to put this content together and then keep this content relevant. These 3 courses build off of each other. So we believe that everybody should start with a foundation because of the different folks that will sign up for the certificate program with so many different disciplines and areas of expertise. We believe that setting a foundation on knowledge lets us be able to build those skills with each quarter. So this first class is really designed to set a foundation of business and toxicology. So this is the class that I teach along with Kevin Wilhelm. He's the CEO of the Sustainable Business Consulting Agency and works with businesses and how they can convert to more sustainable practices or decision makings around that. So, so we're coming in and co-teaching this class to set that, like I said, that business and toxicology foundation. It's, just philosophy wise, it's inappropriate to assume knowledge. And we run into these problems when we work in interdisciplinary teams, when we don't situate ourselves to have that baseline. So that's what this first class is for. And I'm going to ask you all sorts of questions around, hey, let's look at your products that you use in the home and think about the ingredients, and let's dig into some toxicology. Let's look at some safety data sheets and do that kind of work. I'm going to ask you to think about how, differences between a hazard and a toxin and that sort of thing. We're going to talk about like chronic versus acute toxicity. So we're really gonna to give that foundation, because then what we're gonna do at the end of the class is have a mini capstone, and these capstones are gonna be at the end of all 3 of the classes. These capstones kind of capture that integratedness of, okay, over the last 10 weeks, what did we do, and how can we start to frame that toward the larger purpose of the certificate, which is not just the learning, but the doing. And the doing is giving you the tools to either go into your workplace, go into your academic unit, go into your home, and think about how to make substitutions or changes around the chemicals that are being used in regard to all of the other reasons why we should think about what those chemicals are, not just function and form and those sort of things. So the business side of it, the toxicology side of it, the health side, the impact on the environment, and all those other things too.
Mm-hmm.
So these capstones are going to build on each other to capture a project or a projected substitution or approach to a sustainable metric for your company, or again, however you're going to conceptualize that. So we do that in the first class. And then Jill, if you can set me to the second class.
Mm-hmm.
We then say, okay, there's this thing called green chemistry, but it turns out that not everybody knows what that is. When you're in the world of green chemistry, the words kind of make sense because you live in that space, but outside of it, there's a lot of nuances of differences between how a green chemist approaches the work that they do with chemical design or systems design. That's different than how a chemist would do that. So we kind of have this middle class here to set a foundation for green chemistry. So we introduce these principles. We think about like chemical property, hazard assessments. We think about transport and fate of the toxicants in the environment and thinking about predictive models around that. So we're starting to challenge you to like have a little bit more of information about like how the structure of these chemicals and the different properties of the chemicals can have a real impact on how they act and how they react. So we set like a foundation for the first half of this class, and then we get to start to say, okay, well, now we have green chemistry, business, and toxicology. Now we're going to start doing something with this. So for the second part of this, we roll up into that capstone where you're starting to think through these kind of hazard assessments and the properties of these chemicals that we're starting to identify. We'll kind of identify some chemicals in our industry or home or something that we're thinking that we might start to target, to think about how to substitute them out or reduce their use, or however we're going to conceptualize it. And so we're going to then transition into that sort of activeness for this in the end of the second class. And then Jill, that brings us to kind of coup de grace of what we feel that sets the certificate apart from other continuing education programs that you might be considering, which is this really strong action-oriented class. So in this assessment tools for safer chemical decisions, we introduced to you all of the tools that the chemical assessment world uses to think and rank and substitute and quantify hazard and all that sort of thing. So we will go through these different tools, and you will actually use them to assess chemicals to see what kind of hazards or properties that they have that it might not have occurred to you or you as the designer when they designed these years ago, but we have enough data now that we know that there's ecological impact, there's health impact, there's use issues after a decade of sitting on the outside of a plane or whatever that may be. This is the third class then that puts that capstone project together. So you take the first two capstones and you roll it up into this last big one where you're actually going to evaluate a chemical. You're going to pick a product or a chemical that, in your industry or your business, it's problematic, and you're going to develop a sustainability framework. You're going to think about business models. You're going to think about, how do we, if there's a cost issue or a production issue, or a materials issue, how can we make this suggestion for a substitution, and can we make a business case for it? Can we make a toxicology case for it? What if that case needs to be a strong ecological case as well? So you're going to choose, you're going to build this project to use for you. So it's really great because it's not like those prescriptive, like I said, like you go to your academic classes and you're like, okay, we're going to do a project on BPA and you're going to write a report about it and then you're going to staple it and give it to me and get an A. It's definitely not like that. So it's like a choose your own adventure book around thinking about chemicals in a completely different way.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of how those three classes go together. I just want to let you know that I was a part of the instructional design team that conceptualized how to put these classes online and how to make them accessible and appropriate for a continuing education framework. I have over 10, no, 15, almost 15 years experience with online education. I'm a certified Quality Matters master reviewer. Quality Matters is a group that kind of has best practices around how to design online classes and to make sure that they're good. You have probably taken online classes that are not good, and you might be thinking, what is this going to be, that same fiasco? And I will guarantee that it will not. I'm a blended learning certificate. This is my thing. So we have also thought very specifically about how we deliver our content. We have mixed media. We have recorded lectures. We have readings. We have embedded journal articles for additional reading if you want it. Our timelines are very appropriate for considering that we have to live life too. This is not all that we are doing. So I just kind of wanted to vouch for how we put this together, the nuts and bolts of the onlineness of it, because there's online everything. You can go and find all sorts of stuff about these topics by just doing the search, but what we have done is we've found all of the real, relevant, accurate information and put this together for you so that you don't have to wonder, is this the right version? Is this what's the, there's all sorts of stuff, right? Fake news and all that stuff. So we have made sure that this is all the relevant and accurate information, most up-to-date information, and that it's all coming together so that you don't have to do that work. We did that work for you. You just get to stay and learn and work together with everybody, and hopefully have a really engaging, kind of experience.
That's amazing. Thank you, Grace.
Yeah.
I want to also share that I am the administrator on this, but I also took these courses about a year ago. So not last year, but the year before. And it was really a fascinating experience for myself. So I'll try to pepper in a little bit of that because I see we're getting some questions about what is it like to take these courses. So one question we have, Grace, if you could answer, how much hard science do these courses involve?
I guess it kind of depends on how you would define hard science. You will do calculations for in the green chemistry class, right, Jill? I mean, there's some math involved here. It's not a math heavy, it's not physics heavy. It is chemistry heavy. The toxicology is very basic information about this is the body and this is physiology and this is how things move through your body. So a very baseline sort of bit there. So it's not, it's all about action and doing and contextualizing it in a continuing education kind of experience. It's definitely not like an academic hardcore science sort of thing.
Yeah, I would totally agree. I would say the one that's the heaviest is probably the number 2, the Principles of Green Chemistry one, because there's a piece of that that's kind of going to backtrack into your, chemistry classes back in college, and it's going to kind of refresh those ideas for you. And there's a little bit of work in that section, but if it's not your strong suit, we don't spend a lot of time there either. It's kind of a refresher, so you're thinking about the right issues going into the next piece. So it's not like there's a lot of time spent on memorizing redox reactions, things like that. So it's not, I wouldn't let that intimidate you if that is something that you're nervous about coming back to as someone that's been out in your career for a while. And there's also, what's nice about it is that within the context of that that refresh on chemistry, there's an opportunity to go deeper if you want, or you can still keep it at a little bit more surface level. And the good news is that there's a lot of tools that exist that aren't requiring that deep chemistry knowledge, but it is helpful for you to understand what's happening there and what it's evaluating. So I think that it's not so heavy on it, but if you really want to geek out at that level, there is room to do that here as well. So we have something for everybody is what I'm trying to get at here.
That's great.
I think for some people it can feel a little intimidating. To me at first it was a little like, oh, wow, do I remember any of this? And then I started getting excited and a little goosebumpy because I'm like, oh, I love this. So I think there's a little bit of that opportunity, but you don't have to dive that deep if you don't want to. And then we move on to the next thing really quickly, or not so quickly, but that it becomes this applicable situation. So your next question that we have here was, do you have examples of what students have previously done on their capstone? And I think this is kind of a chance, like Grace said, it's a little bit of choose your own adventure. What I noticed, for myself and what I noticed my cohort doing was people were picking, so maybe there's an opportunity to evaluate some chemical you're already working with in your workplace. Maybe it's something that's on a short list of things that need to get evaluated, but no one's had time or capacity or the skills to do so. So people were taking something like that, and then they would do this capstone treatment on it, where they would get a chance to look into the literature. What does the literature tell us about some of the concerns about this? What don't we know? What data gaps exist? Be able to write about that a little bit, then talk about what alternatives would exist, and then how would we perhaps evaluate those alternatives. So that's kind of a nice way to round out a capstone. And I'm not doing it really great justice, but one kind of fun capstone that happens during one of the courses is you're challenged to think like you are a billionaire rocket scientist, as we all have seen them around these days. And there's an engineering issue with a certain type of material that's applied to one of your rockets in space. And I know nothing about, jet propulsion or aerospace, but you can take a situation like that and as a business owner, what would I need to evaluate to make a choice about it? And so there's tools given throughout the course to start evaluating those pieces of the puzzle. So you get to talk about it as a business owner. What would I do? They're not expecting you to be a chemist or an aerospace engineer, but given the data that you're presented, how would you deal with this? There isn't necessarily a right or wrong answer, but how would you justify your choices about it? And it was actually really fun to do and fun to imagine I'm a billionaire rocket scientist.
I love that.
So just an example of a little bit of a choose your own adventure. I found myself evaluating, I've been kind of dabbling in this world for a little bit. So I found myself evaluating maybe chemicals of concern. I used to work in biomolecular engineering, and I used to work in like biotech labs where we use a lot of things like ethidium bromide. And it was something that we would talk about, what is the impact of this? What are our alternatives? And I had done a project that helped evaluate some of the alternatives that are out there on the market now. So for me, that was a really good example of something I knew a little bit about, but I got a chance to go into the literature and really kind of understand what those options look like and what evaluation has been done, and then what could happen with it going forward. Another kind of choose your own adventure piece. I remember I got a little obsessed with dry shampoo. It was like a new thing I discovered in my life. And so one of the questions was, evaluating a personal care product. And for me, that was kind of it's such a personal thing to evaluate, but it turns out in my daily life, I absentmindedly don't bring that same attitude that I do, surveillance level that I brought to the lab. I should do that in my own home and in my own personal care products. So I got a chance to look into it and dive a little deeper around something just on a personal use. So there's opportunities to kind of dabble around in different depths and different topics and different chemicals and processes. So I think that part was really interesting. So we have another question here. I'm interested in environmental health, but my organization isn't a manufacturer. We're more of the consumers. Would these courses still be useful?
Can I take that one?
Absolutely.
All right. So I like to call myself a lot of things, and an environmental health toxicologist is one of them. So, no, that's the dog opening the door. Okay. So this class is a great bridge to knowing what can be done, and then having those expectations on companies that do this when you're doing your action-oriented change agency around environmental health. You now know what they can and what they're not doing. So there is a lot of advocacy that's built into this through the knowledge of knowing that there are ways to do this. We can do this, and companies are either choosing to do that and trying to do that, or they're just kind of doing this. So your assessment on, kind of as consumers of these things that have environmental health impacts, it strengthens your voice when you have to go out and be advocates on behalf of whoever your advocacy is for, or policy, to know how to work interdisciplinarily with chemists, with engineers, with policy people, and work as a team like you're going to work in the certificate. You know everybody else's language, and you know how to work together to achieve that goal. When we're siloed, we don't know how to bridge over, and it creates problems getting things done. So this class is going to empower you in all of these worlds, so that whatever version of what your environmental health is with your organization, you're going to have those tools to help others know better, and to help make real change by learning how to work in interdisciplinary teams.
Yeah. I would also drive home with, we do have people like formulators that take this course, people who are in that product design, or that we're going to be assessing, creating a product. But we also have lots of people that take these courses that are going to be just buying those products out in the world. They're purchasing agents, they're managers of a lab or another like retail space. We've had folks from Costco, Target, retailers who want to just evaluate products as they're coming in, but they're not necessarily creating their own. So I think there's a lot of different ways this can be helpful to people. I think the other thing to emphasize too is that what I like about how this is that really practical approach for chemistry, toxicology, and business is that whatever piece you don't have, there's going to be something else. Whatever piece you have now, there's going to be a piece you don't have that is a part of the story that you can gain from this. That's what I found too. It's like places where I was strong, I was really easy for me to move through the modules, and the places where I didn't really have any of that background, it was really helpful to beef that piece up. So I think there's a little bit of something for everyone. And I think what I like about some of the tools we use is they really run the gamut of someone who's going to be looking at this from many different angles, right? Someone who's going to just, we talk about something like ChemHat, which is really friendly towards someone just working in maybe at a construction site and wants to understand this type of wood glue. What is this going to impact me? So a tool like that is very friendly for someone who doesn't have that chemistry background. That said, we're also going to spend time talking about restrictive lists, using things like Pharos, being able to dive deeper into the literature on the chemistry side if you want to. So knowing that all of those types of things are out there and opportunities, you can really kind of, you can stick with where you're comfortable, but you also can know that this full breadth exists. And I think, another thing about using the tools that's really key is that, like I said, I've been interested in green chemistry for a while, and I'd heard about some of these tools, but I'd yet to actually use any of them. So my first chance to actually do my own green screen was a really important moment for me. That felt like, okay, now I see why this is the gold standard in a lot of ways. So things like that were really eye-opening as well. So I think that it's helpful to see this from a couple of different angles. So another question. No, these are great questions. I'm loving this. This is fantastic. Yeah. Do you go over any cost, benefit, or life cycle analysis techniques when choosing alternative greener products?
So I know in course 1, we introduce these ideas, and then I think you're challenged to think about these for one of the assignments. But I also think that in course 2, Rick Morgan is our industry faculty. He actually is a rocket scientist, among many other things.
Guess who wrote that capstone?
Yeah. No, yeah. I think, correct me, Jill, that he does a really great job in kind of thinking about greener products, but assessing them from that cost analysis and cost benefits sort of approach. So he gives that kind of information and situates it not just in the chemistry world, but that kind of life cycle world as well.
Yeah, and he actually has like a program and a rubric that he introduces that he uses in industry to evaluate how important certain factors are to you. So you can try to say, you know, maybe the environmental health piece is really important to me. You can value something like that higher than, say, like cost benefit, or you can say cost benefit, it's got to really save me money, but I care less about the environmental impact, but more about the human health. So he has this really cool program that he'll share with you that helps even visualize this data, which is really fascinating. And then the other piece about this in course 3, there is a lot of data there around life cycle approach, as well as kind of decision-making tools that are out there. This is another piece that I didn't really expect to learn, but I was so happy to. So now you've got all this data, but how do you start making a choice? And that piece was actually harder than I thought it would be. And there are rubrics and tools to do that sort of work. And I think that's when you really kind of see this big picture come through. So you see it in course 2 and as well as course 3, and this kind of culmination of the different types of tools that can be used. So that cost benefit piece is really big. And I think you see a little bit of it in course 1 with Kevin kind of starts dabbling into this piece too. So it's kind of sprinkled throughout, I would say. Yeah. Great. Well, keep those questions coming. I just had a couple other questions for Grace. I don't want to keep anybody too long on an evening program as well. I was just, Grace, can you talk a little bit about why you wanted to be involved in this program and what brought you to it?
Yeah, I mean, if you haven't kind of figured that out so far, I'm a really social and environmental justice change advocacy oriented person. And so I think that we need to all work together, bring our expertises and tackle real problems, but things have got to change. We can't keep status quo. We already see that that's a blooming disaster. I mean, literally with algal blooms. I mean, like there's like real things that are going on that I feel that business and industry and consumers have to take charge of, and not wait for governments and not wait for, billionaires to fix the problem. It's our job now. So this program to me, when I saw it coming together and heard about how it filled this gap in continuing education programming, I just immediately was like, this is like it. This is how we do this. This is how people have the tools, have the knowledge and the language, and can actually go and make change. And so I'm motivated by that. I'm a rile people up kind of person too. So I'm glad to get everybody in that first class, and I get it all like this. And then I'm like, okay, go change the world, make it better, because I got kids out there that really need you to help them. And we live in a world that is just, it's chemicalized, and we've got to make change. And this is the only program that is available nationwide that is doing this all together in this kind of certificate program. So this is it, and so I'm on board.
You had mentioned earlier the time spent creating the program and the curriculum, and now the courses have been, or this program has been going on for 4 years now. Can you talk about how do you approach freshening up the curriculum, or going forward into the new year, anything new you might try to weave in?
Yeah, so when you were talking about how you started to geek out on stuff, you can rest assured that all of your faculty are geeking out over our stuff too. So every year we have a summer, and in this summer we all come together, and you know, the instructors for each of the classes, and then we kind of have like a conversation communally around, okay, are there updates that need to get made? Did something change this year? Is there a new tool? Is there new research that's supporting, you know, this kind of sustainable practice, has great business outcomes or whatnot? So we are constantly refreshing these classes to make sure that they're relevant, because things are changing at a rapid pace, and we want to make sure that we're keeping up with that.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's, I know of at least like 2 or 3 new tools that got dropped into the courses this last year. So there is always like new content, which is fantastic. And like Grace mentioned, this is a really dynamic field. It's young, and there's all sorts of opportunity for new things coming out. So what's fun about this too is because of so many different people, part of your cohort, are coming to these discussion boards with different expertise, they can also, you know, tell you about a paper you didn't see before, or maybe a news article about some other, oh, this chemical has been found to do X, Y, and Z. So there's not only the new content the instructors bring, but your cohort will bring new information to you, and you can share your expertise too, which I can't stress enough. It's fun and it's invaluable. So I think that's a really big plus as well. Can you talk about the availability of the instructors, and maybe what, you know, if someone needs some additional resources, how they could go about asking for those?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're all we're all invested heavily in this program, and we're all very excited about this. So when you send us questions, we're like, ah!
Yes.
And we get everything that you need to you as soon as possible, because we're just waiting. See, that's no joke. I like really about that. So we have policies, like, so there's best practices around online. You know, within 48 hours, if you just send an email to a faculty about something course related, like you know, like my registration or something like that, we get on that very, very quickly. You know, give us the weekend. That might be problematic, but really, we encourage you to reach out. We have discussion boards where it's like, pose a question about the content and anybody can answer, but the faculty are always there. For the discussion boards that you're posting on in the class, the faculty interact with that. We leave comments in the grade book, very like specific comments on your work, giving you information and additional stuff. When you email or call us, we pick up that phone and we're working with you. So this is not like a MOOC where the massively online classes where there's somebody that they say that they're the instructor, but you have no idea, you've never met them, you never will, because they're just a face on a screen, kind of like mine there. I'm not just that face on that screen, I am on the phone. So so that level of communication is up to you, but we're there to work, you know, work with you. And it, you know, if it gets really deep into like, yeah, I actually have a business model that I really want to work with, you can bet we're gonna work with you, connect you with people to help support you, and keep it going after the class ends, or the certificates ends as well too. So like I said, we're heavily invested and very geeky, so yeah. We're here.
Is there certain elements of the course that you have found, or the course that you teach, have been most valuable or useful for professionals? Is there anything that jumps out at you that people have found really useful?
Well, I mean, for my course in particular, Jill, I was so happy, like my heart just got really happy when you're like, I didn't really think about my home around me, you know?
Yeah.
So I actually feel like that added bonus is the personal impact that it makes. I mean, you're starting to think about cleaning chemicals now. You're starting to think about fragrances and parfums, and like how, you know, you're starting to think about what's coming out of this thing. You're starting to think about, you know, what's in my drywall, and when I paint, what you, that added bonus of, hey, I might also be able to detoxify my personal landscape, not just my professional landscape, I think is an unexpected extra that has real consequence to your health and wellness. So it's really important.
It's fantastic. I think it's one of those, you know, our goal here is to talk a lot about this occupationally, but I think, yeah, having that depth available for people to go and see this as a lifestyle to approach to how you can keep you and your family safer. It's beautiful.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah,
It's my calling.
yeah. Can you give an example of how people have used information from the course out in their professional lives?
So I know that we've had a couple of students who have, after the certificate has ended, emailed us and said, hey, I used my capstone, went to my boss, made the business case, and they're considering how they're going to implement this. So we've actually had 2 students that have literally caused massive change in their organization due to the capstone work that they've done. One individual was recognized in her company for the work that she did on this project and how it triggered change within her organization. And they were very, very thankful for her to do that work. So other people have emailed me again about that kind of like personal toxicology side, and they're like, I've made massive changes and it has helped with personal issues that I've had, and I never thought I could figure it out, but you gave me the tools and the foundation for me to take a better look at this, and now I have like solved these health problems that I've had. So I've gotten emails on that regard too. So you're in this kind of really wonderful spectrum of how you're going to apply it in what capacity you need it to. But it's all information and knowledge that we don't get anywhere else. See, that's the thing of it. We're not getting these. We didn't get these in our programs of study academically. Nobody's telling us on the TV. You know, this is just not this is not out there, and it needs to be out there. So it's that specialness of having this program to arm you with the information that you need to be warriors and, you know, changing the world around chemical design and chemical use. That's very special.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. We're gonna finish up now with talking a little bit more about nuts and bolts of the course and what to expect for your next steps. So each one of the classes is 5 credits, and it's 3 classes to complete the certificate program. It's self-paced, but you can expect to spend around 5 to 10 hours per week. Like I mentioned, that one with the basic chemistry, I needed a little more time. Some of the other sections, I needed a little less time. Each course covers 5 modules with a new module every 2 weeks. So you have a little time within those 2 weeks to finish up that module. There's about 1 assignment for each module, and they kind of vary in topic and breadth. The course material is available anytime within that module being open. So you can do it at 3 a.m., you can do it at 8 a.m., you can do it at 6 p.m. When the dog enters your door, you can do it then. The deadline for assignments along with each course is generally every 2 weeks. So we try to space it out in a way that's realistic for folks. The folks that
I do want to say that we do recognize that, you know, there are things that could make that a difficult timeline to meet, and we're very, very accommodating. It's not a punitive sort of thing. This is like a supportive process, and we want you to succeed.
Yes.
So we definitely have we work with everybody that needs that kind of help too.
Yes, and I will say that every instructor is, they really are rooting for you, and these are passionate folks, and they want to see you get a chance to spend time with the material. So it's less about, you know, you lost points or something. There's a lot of grace opportunity to support what situation you're in. So I think just that communication piece is really important, and I think everyone can understand that this is, you know, like you said, this is on top of your real job and your real life. So, and everyone wants you to be successful. So some examples of types of folks that have applied. We've got engineers, chemists, material scientists, product engineers, supply chain procurement professionals, sustainability consultants and coordinators, environmental managers, health and safety professionals, risk managers. I would also, you know, the sectors are all over the place as well. So lots of folks from retail, many different large companies, government, some nonprofits. There's a little bit of everybody that has taken these courses as well. Prereqs. So we recommend, it's really designed for students that have a 4-year degree and at least 2 years of professional experience. And we ask that people have a basic knowledge of chemistry equivalent to a basic college level chemistry course. So that is something that is, you can kind of have a conversation with yourself about where you're at with that. There is an opportunity to kind of refresh during the courses. So I wouldn't let something like that necessarily stop you, but it will be very helpful when just understanding some of the impacts of what we're discussing. So the application process, you check out our website at osha.washington.edu. We'll have more information in your registration pages, and an email will be following up tomorrow with those registration page information and a recording as well. After creating an account on our site, you can register for 1 or all 3 of the courses at the same time. The registration deadline is 2 weeks before the start of each of the courses. An individual can register for courses a la carte, but a certificate is awarded when you complete all 3 courses successfully. Each course is $910, and that includes 5 CEUs. And then you follow the prompts to checkout, and then 2 weeks before the course, you'll be provided some login information to access the course learning environment. And then we'll make sure you're accessing everything happily as we roll into the quarter start. And the deadline for registration for course 1 for this cohort is September 22nd. So with that, I just want to thank you for joining us, Grace. It's always so great, and I get inspired talking to you every time about this program. So thank you for taking the time. I appreciate it. Absolutely. And thank you for those excellent audience questions. Those were fantastic, and I think the right things to think about going into something like this. So with that, if you have any additional questions, please do not hesitate to get a hold of me at jstod@uw.edu. Or give me a call and we can chat about it anytime. All right, with that, thank you so much and have a great evening, and I hope you can join us in September. Thanks, Grace.